All right. It is Tuesday, July 5th, 2022. And I am in a mood today. Being that yesterday was July 4th, had a great time. Took my boys. We live in a town outside of Washington, D.C. called Bowie, Maryland. And the fireworks weren't happening in our city. So we found out from a friend of ours that the fireworks were happening at Six Flags. So I took the boys there, and we didn't know where to park in Six Flags, but we found a perfect spot for the fireworks. Them joints were right there over us. Boom, 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 boom. It was really quick. It was only about 10 minutes, 12 minutes, but it was nice because it was the closest we've been to the fireworks. So I am in a political mood today because yesterday was July 4th. And so I want to talk today, and I'm not going to take probably as long as I normally do when I do these Kurt Corners, but I'm going to talk a little bit about a question. Now, since abortion has happened, since the Roe v. Wade situation has happened, what up, Gabe? What's popping, baby? Since the Roe v. Wade decision was overturned last Friday, or the Friday before last, I've seen a lot of talk about particularly Black church and Black Christians with a platform that are supposedly woefully silent on the issue. And so there's all this talk, and I was going kind of back and forth with a guy on Twitter, not angrily, but just fact for fact kind of thing. And his point was that the majority of the Black church supports abortion and votes Democrat and all that stuff. Leon, what's good, bro? So let's talk about that. There is a lot of mythology about the Black church, Black Christians, and voting Democrat. And there's something that's not being clearly communicated. This is actually something that Black Lives Matter understood intuitively, and this is why they actually had some of the success that they had. Now, let me just say this, full disclosure, and this may lose me some subscribers, all right? So let me just be honest with you. I am not a Democrat. I don't vote Democrat. I think the Democrats have been hustling Black people since the civil rights legislation, since Lyndon B. Johnson signed it. They've been hustling Black folks. I think the Democrats have done significant evil to the Black community, and I don't trust them, all right? I've never voted Democrat in my life, so if you're a conservative here, don't judge the book by its cover, baby. I don't do it. But I also don't vote conservative either. As a matter of fact, I've decided as a pastor that I am pulling out of politics, period, because what's popping on, baby? That's one of the OGs right there, one of my day oneers right there. I've stopped getting involved in politics because it's too volatile. But I am a conservative at heart. If I were voting, I'd probably vote conservative. Even if that meant voting for Donald Trump, I probably would vote conservative. But I don't vote anymore because it's so volatile in this day and age. And as a pastor, I need to be able to care for people who are dealing with the struggles and not be accused of, oh, you just said that because you're a liberal or you're a conservative. So I don't deal with politics. The Bible does not tell me I have to vote. So I don't care to vote. I'll trust the sovereignty of the Lord. And let's be honest, let's be clear. It doesn't matter what the Electoral College says or how many people get out and vote. MTV rock the vote. You vote this. Latinos, yo, vote. All that stuff, right? The reality is, here's the reality. I'm not saying you shouldn't vote. Do what you feel is best. But the reality is there's no one that will sit in the White House that God hasn't sovereignly placed in the White House, all right? So no matter what. So you can believe the hype if you want to. You're not getting in the White House unless the Lord decides you're in the White House. So for all the people that said Trump is God's man, well, guess what? So was Biden. Because it wasn't like the devil put Biden in the White House, even though it looks like he did. The Lord is sovereign over who's in the White House, right? So I'm not a hyper-Calvinist. I'm not saying don't do anything. I'm just saying in the grand scheme of things, it's not like God's like, oh my gosh, how did Trump get in the White House? Jesus, did you let Biden in there? The Lord let everybody in, right? Let's keep it 100. All right. King Tut, what's good, baby? All right, so let's have this discussion. I'm in a political mood today. Let's have some fun. Let's talk about why do Black people vote Democrat? Now, many people will point back to civil rights legislation and say, oh, that's why they got duped by the Democrats. If you listen to Candace Owens, black people are stupid for voting Democrat because we get duped. If you listen to other conservatives like Ben Shapiro or anyone else, then they'll say, yes, I got to put this up there. Kimberly, yes, me being black and not voting is blasphemy. 100% to some people, right? That's how it is. But that's theological. That's my problem with voting, because Christianity has been so intertwined to politics in America that we have a theological gospel, not a theological gospel. You got people who find it. Let me tell you what it means to be theological. When your motives, your morality, and your hope is in the political system and not in Jesus, who created all political systems. You're a Christian, sure, but you act like the party that you are a part of. The Bible is bipartisan. It transcends political parties. But people, once they identify with the party, they act within the moral confines of that party. And I think the Bible, Ephesians 5:11 says, expose the deeds of darkness, not expose the deeds of the left and expose the deeds of the right. And once you identify with the party, it is an unspoken rule that you cannot say anything negative about that party. And I'm not for it. I'm not for it. I have a problem with everyone. Boop, 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 boop. When I play Fortnite, I shoot everybody, even my own team. All right. So why do black people vote Democrat? If you listen to some, it's because we've been duped by the system and all this stuff, and black people just are for abortion. No. Let me tell you why black people vote Democrat. I'm going to prove this, all right? And you're going to be shocked how I prove this. Let me give you 2 words of why black people vote Democrat. 2 words. Systemic undervaluation, all right? Systemic undervaluation, right? And I'm not going to say what that means yet. I'm going to prove it to you first. Systemic undervaluation is why black people primarily vote Democrat. Not because they agree with LGBT, not because they are down with abortion. Don't let it fool you that because black people have more abortions than don't let that stat fool you. It's more complicated than that, way more complicated than that. But there's a reason why black people vote Democrat. Typically, it's systemic undervaluation. And I'm going to give you the illustration to prove my point, and then you'll see what I mean. All right, here we go. In June 19th, 2020, Larry Elder, who is a staunch black conservative, he is Candace Owens's protege, like he discipled her. So he is her sensei. That's her sensei, right? So he decided, as a matter of fact, Larry Elder wrote a book in 2012. This is the name of the book. You cannot make this stuff up. Black dude, conservative, Republican. This is the name of his book that got him popular. Stupid Black Men, How to Play the Race Card and Lose. That's the name of the book. All right. I don't know how many black people Larry Elder's been around, but let me just tell you, as a dude who's from the ghetto or who has been around the ghetto, when you call black people stupid, those is fighting words. So you already lost us. There ain't no way you're going to call me stupid. And I'm going to be like, let me listen to what you got to say. All right. So anyway, Larry Elder wrote a book called that, but he started a documentary, and the documentary is called Uncle Tom, an oral history of the American black conservative. All right. This documentary did very well for not being covered by a lot of what they would call the leftist media. All right. This documentary did really well for what it was. All right. And he released it in 2020, and it came out, and it featured predominantly black. I mean, it was black conservatives. It was just the who's who of popular black conservatives. Larry Elder, Brandon Tatum, Candace Owens, Carol Swain, Allen West. I mean, they were just Robert Woodson, all these popular black conservatives and black Republicans were in this documentary, and the point of the documentary was to say that they are called Uncle Tom by the black people because they don't fit the narrative, which means they don't agree with systemic racism and the struggle that black people have gone through. That's the victimology. They don't fit the narrative, and there's a lot of people I know that don't fit the narrative. Ironically, it's funny that black people have to announce they don't fit the narrative so they can be accepted by white conservatives. I don't know. That's just me. Who am I? I'm just an ex-black gangster who's now a pastor with a big mouth. All right. Maybe it's me. Reverse racism working to their favor. All right. So he did this documentary And there is a point, there is a 4-minute segment of this documentary that blew my mind. In fact, I am shocked they put this in the documentary. Because when you hear Candace Owen and her Blexit, Black people exit I mean, she's traveling the country with Turning Point USA and trying to draw Black people to be Republicans, calling Black people stupid for voting Democrat, and then wonders why she's calling Uncle Tom. I'm sorry. If you insult me, don't expect me to be like, yay, but you said some good stuff, though. It's like, nah, those fighting words to me. But anyway, who am I? I'm just an ex-Black dude from the streets. All right. This documentary at the 128-minute mark, 128 and 44, I'm sorry, 124 and 44 seconds exactly. Okay, I'm giving you the timestamp from 124:44 to 128:34. So 3 minutes and 50 seconds. Black conservatives, Black Republicans, not Black Lives Matter, not the liberal left, not the progressive left, not the 7 up on the left, y'all. None of the left, right? All Black conservatives, politicians, people that voted Republican. And here's what they said. Now, I'm still new to the YouTube rules, right? So I just be putting videos up on my phone. I don't even do it like some of the other people do, right? So I'm just going to do it the way I do it. This is the ghetto way this is the gangster way to do it. I want you to listen. I'm only going to play part of this clip, and I'm going to read some of the, listen to what the Black conservatives, remember, this is not Black Lives Matter. This is not the liberal left. These are Black conservatives that only vote Republican. This is what they say in a documentary about why they're Black and vote Republican. Here's what they say. Please listen. This is systemic undervaluation. You're about to get some wisdom on why Black people vote Democrat. Here we go. Here's what they say. We get 3 strikes. Young people do a crime, they get amnesty. They get benefits.
Blacks are protesting the fact that for the last 50 years, they're living in cities that are the most dangerous, disinvested places, and they've been run by liberal Black Democrats. But they've got no alternative to express that discontent. The Black community is low-hanging fruit for the Republican Party. And the fact that they're not making a more concerted effort to message to our community aggressively is a huge mistake.
First, they have to be serious about whether or not they want minorities in the party. And if they are, then they need to totally rethink how they're going about it. My experience is running as a mayoral candidate in a city that's predominantly Democrat. I've been criticized by Republican strategists for spending my time in minority communities. I placed my campaign office in a historically Black community. I did that by choice. I have not found the kind of support that I expected from Republicans. I think that if you look at the Republican Party, I believe that if I were white, that I would notice that there were so few people of color, racial and ethnic minorities in my party, and I would support the ones that were sincere. I love America. I've lived the American dream, and I want to give hope to people who are disadvantaged, not just Black people, but
all right, hold on. Let me make sure y'all with me. If you just knew and were just watching, let me make sure. These are Black Republicans, conservatives, saying that the Republican Party is not interested in Black people obtaining Black vote. So that's Carol Swain just now. She ran as a Republican in a predominantly Black area, voted Democrat, and she's saying the Republicans, I didn't get the support that I anticipated getting. And I would think that they would think, here's someone Black reaching a demographic that we don't normally reach. Let's support them. That's not what she's saying. Oh, there's more. Let's keep going. This is coming from them. This isn't Black Lives Matter. This isn't liberal left, progressive left, or set it up on the left. This is just the conservatives on the right saying this about the right. All right?
So white people who come from unfortunate circumstances. When I've gone to campaign and elections meetings, I hear the strategists say, don't waste your time in minority communities. You need to hunt where the ducks are.
For years, the Democratic Party,
Larry Elder.
they were going to get 90-95% of the black vote, as did the Republican Party. They didn't even try. Republicans have convinced themselves that blacks are unalterably Democrats. There's nothing we can do about it. Let's husband our money and our energy and just spend it where we think we can get votes. The Republican Party ignores us because they believe a narrative that has been pushed out into the public square that the black community is a monolith. And so we're being ignored on both sides.
The major conservative in the race, Carol Swain, was the last to concede tonight.
We're not making the kind of investments in our minority allies. That's the fault of the Republican Party, is that they have just completely said, we can't connect with them, and they gave up. We have more in common with the Republican Party by far than anything Democrat, regardless of where your position is socioeconomically. Because the Democrats, they're not giving jobs.
Okay. So let's make sure we all listen. Get your popcorn out. This is called, you can look this up yourself. I promise you. Go watch the documentary. I thought it was a good documentary, but I thought it exposed some things, and this is what we're going to talk about. The reason why black people vote Democrat is systemic undervaluation. Now, let me just make sure I remind you what you just watched. You watched a segment. There's a 3-minute and 50-second segment in a documentary called Uncle Tom, An Oral History of the American Black Conservative, in which Larry Elder himself, who paid for and did the documentary, is also saying Republicans do not care about black people. That's essentially what they're saying. You heard from Carol Swain, who said, my experiences running as a mayoral candidate in a city that's predominantly Democrat, I've been criticized by Republican strategists for spending my time in minority communities. Alan West, who was one of the last guys on, just said, that's the fault of the Republican Party. They have just completely said, we can't connect with them, and they gave up, right? I mean, this guy, Rob Smith, is a rising star in the Republican Party. Here's what he said. You're not going to be able to sell your ideas and your theories and your thoughts to the people if you're doing things in the same way that you have done them for the last 20 and 30 years. Okay. So what does this mean? Here's the challenge for me as a black man. I don't have a political affiliation. But here's the thing. And an open sentence to Candace Owens in particular and other people. Why are you criticizing black people for voting Democrat when you're the guy who discipled you, Larry Elder, and some of the who's who of black Republicans are saying the Republicans don't care about black people? Help me, please. So basically what you're saying is black people, at least, here's what I'll give the Democrats credit for. The Democrats at least pretend to care, right? Pretend to care. Black people have been so wounded in this country that someone pretending to care is better than someone who doesn't care to pretend, right? So this is the situation we find ourselves in. You got these people criticizing black people as if we just are systemically evil and we just love to vote Democrat because we're LGBT pro everything. We're gay community. We're abortion. We just love abortion. But the reality is most black people know that the problem is not that we agree with all their values. The problem is we know that the Republicans don't value us. So Candace Owens and all these people are calling black people for stupid for voting Democrat, but then in a documentary, you're saying the Republicans don't even want black people in their party. And they told Carol Swain, you should take your money and go hunt where the ducks are. Larry Elder himself said in the video, let's just husband our money elsewhere, right? You have former Republican, I'm talking about Republican, Stephen Brother is a former Republican political candidate from Texas's 30th congressional district. And he said the Republican Party ignores us because they believe a narrative that has been pushed out into the public square. The black community is a monolith, so we're being ignored on both sides. So why are you calling black people stupid for voting Democrat when at least the Democrats pretend to care? They pretend to care. You want us to say, you know what? We don't stand by them and leave them and go vote for a party that doesn't care to pretend. They like, look, we don't even want y'all. We good. We where the money is. We got the people that we want. This is ridiculous to me. Now, don't get me wrong. Everyone has their own political convictions. There may be people here offended because I'm speaking negatively about the Democrats. I'll take it. And if that means you're not going to subscribe anymore, I'm sorry. I am what I am, and that's all that I am. That's what Popeye said, right? I'm with Popeye. It is what it is. But when you criticize people, black people in particular, for not voting Democrat, you put in your documentary that's pro-black conservative Republican that the Republicans don't want black people. This is like, what do they call that? Insanity. Like doing the same thing and expecting different results, right? So the people who are actually stupid are the people in this documentary, because you're expecting black people to follow your lead when you recognize that white Republicans, the conservative party, doesn't want them in it. I mean, let's just be clear. These are black conservatives saying the Republican Party, but what they're talking about are white people, or only conservatives. They don't want black people in their party. Carol Swain said they have to decide, do they want minorities in the party or not? She's talking, they didn't say white people because they don't want to say that. But that's what they're saying. White people who vote Republican don't want, this is their words. This is not Black Lives Matter's language. This is their words. This is their documentary. And this is why I think the problem happens. You're dealing with, if you say systemic racism is gone, let's just say that that's a true statement. You're dealing with systemic wounds, fam. There are wounds. There are systemic attitudes that have been perpetuated from that racism. So even if the laws have changed, there are still hearts that haven't. And this documentary that came out in October of 2020 is proving the point that systemic racism, the laws may have changed, but the attitudes haven't. These people don't want black people in their party. But you're going to blame black people for voting Democrat and oversimplify it as if we just love abortion and we just love. No, fam, it's just more complicated than that. And this is why I say Public Enemy said it best. Don't believe the hype. Ooh, it's complicated. It's challenging. This is a God-sized problem that people are trying to fit into men that they make as gods. Can't happen. Can't happen. If the church cried out to the Lord, millions of people, same time every day, twice a week, that would have more impact on what happens in our nation than who you vote for. I believe that. The Lord is not playing. So, the problem when black people talk about systemic racism, they're not talking about violence from the KKK. They're talking about silence from the RNC, the Republican National Convention. Black people aren't stupid. White people aren't stupid. Amy Cooper in 2020 was the story of the year. Came out right before, she came out on Monday and George Floyd happened on Thursday. Amy Cooper, story of the year. Amy Cooper was the white girl in Central Park who was walking her dog. The dog wasn't supposed to be on those grounds until 9 a.m. It was 8 a.m. And another black dude whose last name was ironically Cooper, I think it was Gray Cooper, can't remember the first name. He's walking his dog. They get into this situation. He's recording her, and she says, I'm going to call the police and tell them a black man's harassing me. And he was like, go ahead and do it. Now, she said that because she knew that this nation favors white people, and particularly is more violent towards black people. And she thought by threatening him, that would get him to back away, but he filmed the whole thing and it backfired on her because he had it on video. That's you know what that means? She understands the systemic attitude. So the laws have changed, but Amy Cooper is the front runner of understanding systemic attitudes, which have systemic wounds for black people. This doesn't excuse black people for the evils and sins that we do. Absolutely not. Everyone will stand before God and give an account. There's a lot of black people that are going to give an account for a lot of evil. But let's not act like black people are just sitting there like, yeah, we could do the right thing. We could be good, but we just want to do, it's more complicated than that. For most black people, this is not about we support the values of the Democratic Party. You know what it is? It's the Republican Party doesn't value us. And we ain't voting for people. We've already had to be slaves of people and mistreated without our own. We had to be mistreated without a choice. Now, when you give us a choice, we ain't letting these people mistreat us again. It's systemic undervaluation. Is you don't value us. You don't value us, And Black Republicans are saying it on a documentary to promote Black conservatism. If that is not the oof of the 21st century, then what? That's at least in the top 5. So again, when you hear these talking points, oh, Black people this, Black people that, remember, it's a little bit more complicated. And Black people are not going to just willfully just put themselves into subjection under the same kind of people that forced them into subjection historically. If you know these people don't care and there's already a history between white and Black people that not caring, I'm not going to volunteer. Now, I'm not saying Black people should vote Democrat. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying I understand why we do. And it is not just because of the typical conservative talking point policies. No, 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 no. Beyonce and them told you that a long time ago. That's not why. It's because of systemic undervaluation. You can agree, you can disagree. What do I know? I'm just a big Black dude from the street who's now a pastor trying to say something that nobody else feels like saying. All right, man, I appreciate y'all giving me your time. Enjoy your July 5th, which I'm sure you not because you at work, mad at you, still ain't off and grilling and chilling like you was yesterday. Oh, and for the record, for the people that say, oh, no one that's alive that owned a slave is alive today, so why are you bringing it up? Well, guess what? There's no one alive today that was around July 4th, 1776 either, but we talk about and celebrate that. People are wild, man. They think we're dumb. We're not. We're not. See ya.